The story I'm about to share happened to me a few years ago now. I cautiously clicked through the listings on Craigslist. I scanned the screen for any affordable baby clothes. Any new parents out there know what I mean when I say preparing for newborns is an expensive and a stressful thing to do. My wife Sarah was due in just a few months, and we were trying to prepare ourselves for an impending arrival of our little one. That's when I stumbled upon an ad that caught my attention. Baby clothes bundle, excellent condition, $50. The ad seemed promising, displaying pictures of various tiny outfits, neatly folded and ready for a new home. I was excited as I reached out to the seller to arrange a meeting. I didn't recognize the street name or even the area where we arranged the meetup, but I was also somewhat new to the area at the time, so I didn't think too much about it. On the designated day, I made my way to the address. I was surprised, and honestly, I thought I may have been at the wrong address at first. The house seemed abandoned, like it had been neglected for a long time. The peeling paint and broken windows created a very unnerving experience. I parked my car a little distance away, and I nervously approached the entrance. My heart was pounding, and I felt a mix of anticipation and, honestly, a little fear. I knocked on the door, and it sort of just opened. Inside was a dimly lit room that was casting shadows across decaying walls and furniture. I could hear the floorboards creaking under my weight as I ventured further into the house. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, causing me to freeze in my tracks. The man before me had wild, disheveled hair and bloodshot eyes that darted around the room. He seemed so unsettled. His appearance alone made me uncomfortable, and I instantly started to question my decision to come here. In a quivering voice that sounded like a mix of excitement and almost desperation, the man said, "Are you here for the baby clothes?" Yeah, I am," I replied, attempting to hide the fact that I was terrified. He asked abruptly, "Where's the pregnant woman?" My heart skipped a beat. Something about his question, the way he asked it, gave me a horrible feeling. I mustered up the courage to speak, and in a shaky voice I said, She couldn't make it. She's home." As soon as the words left my lips, the man's demeanor shifted dramatically. His face contorted with anger and frustration, and his breathing became heavy and erratic. He clenched his fist, his knuckles were turning white, and then he abruptly turned and ran towards the exit, leaving me alone in this abandoned house. I stood there, shocked and afraid, trying to process what had just happened. And then I noticed it. An object left behind on the floor. It was a knife that was gleaming in the dim light that was shining through the windows. The realization struck me instantly. Was this deranged man planning to harm Sarah? Were we in actual danger? Panic took over me, and I wasted no time trying to escape the house. As I drove away, my mind raced as I was thinking about all of the terrifying possibilities. What were the true intentions of that crazed man? When I finally arrived home, I held Sarah close. My heart was still pounding. I did contact the authorities and report the incident, and I tried to provide them all the details that I could recall. From that day forward, I never used Craigslist or even Facebook Marketplace. I love a good deal, but some people are monsters, and that's a risk I don't want to take. To this day, I often wonder what would have happened if Sarah had gone with me. The implications seemed clear. The man's sudden outburst, his escape, the knife left behind. The thought of the potential danger still messes me up when I think about it. Even someone selling something as harmless as baby clothes can turn out to be a terrifying monster. I never believed in the supernatural. Ghost stories, haunted houses, and cursed objects were nothing more than tales to scare the gullible. And honestly, I still may believe that. Even writing this now, I'm not sure this was anything more than just a coincidence. Either way, I thought it was spooky and I figured I would share my story and see what people think. The short story I'm about to tell started when I stumbled upon a listing on Craigslist. A supposedly haunted chest from a tomb on the other side of the world. It sounded like a load of nonsense, but there was something about it that intrigued me. Honestly, it just sounded cool, and it sounded like something I wanted to display on my bookshelf as a nice conversation starter. I hesitated for a moment, contemplating the purchase. Not because it was allegedly haunted, but because I would be spending money on someone's junk. But, as I said before, it could be an interesting conversation piece from my collection of oddities. With a smirk on my face, I contacted the seller, and long story short, a few days later I was the proud owner of a weird little chest. The chest was intricately carved, bearing symbols and patterns that hinted at an ancient origin. As I placed it on my shelf, I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of the ghostly presence lurking within. It really was cool. Haunted or not, the chest actually looked old, and I could easily convince people that it was hundreds, if not thousands of years old. However, strange things did start happening. Objects would move when I wasn't looking. I felt like I could hear whispers in the air, and a chill would fill the room at the most unexpected moments. I dismissed it as a series of coincidences and my own overactive imagination playing tricks on me. The nightmares were what truly shook me to my core. Each night, I would be transported to a place of darkness. Unearthly creatures with glowing eyes and grotesque forms would torment me relentlessly. They were so real and unlike any other dreams I have ever had in my life. I would wake up, drenched in sweat, and I'd be thinking about the nightmares for hours after the fact. As days turned into weeks, my once confident skepticism started to fade, and I was replaced by fear and uncertainty. I found myself constantly contemplating the true nature of the chest. Could it be that I had accidentally invited something malevolent into my life? Driven by desperation, or maybe just in case, I made the decision to part ways with the haunted chest. I sold it to a fellow collector, and I was relieved to have it out of my possession. And just as abruptly as the strange occurrences had begun, they stopped. The nightmares vanished, the whispers faded, and the cold air was non-existent. Coincidence? Perhaps. But deep down, I had my doubts, and I always will. I learned a valuable lesson about the power of belief, and that even skeptics can be swayed when faced with some unexplainable events. Since then, I've steered clear of any items with a history or claims of the supernatural. I couldn't find any information on the original seller, so unfortunately, I don't know any of the history from before I had the chest. I guess some mysteries are just better left unsolved. And as for the allegedly haunted chest now, I have no idea. I never contacted the guy I sold it to, and as far as I know, he's completely fine. What do you think? Was the chest cursed? Or did I just let my mind take over and win? This happened to me and my friends over 10 years ago when we were still in high school. It was a rainy Friday night and my friends and I were hanging out at our buddy Mark's house. High school life had its fair share of boredom, and we were desperate for some excitement. Fueled by our mischievous nature, we decided to entertain ourselves by browsing Craigslist for a potential prank victim. And like I said, we were very mischievous. Craigslist is weird. We found all sorts of wild ads, and from those ads we decided to make some prank phone calls, fake some emails, and we reveled in the absurdity of our juvenile mischief. Little did we know that the tables were about to turn, and we were about to realize that we'd messed with the wrong person. As the night wore on, we heard a knock on the door. We rushed to the entrance. It was this weird thrill of excitement and fear because It was after midnight at this point. To our surprise, though, there was no one there. A couple of us went out and searched the porch and the darkened street beyond, but there wasn't a sign of anyone. Shaking it off as just a product of our imaginations, we returned to our gathering, just dismissing the incident as a harmless coincidence. However, as the hours crept by, something didn't feel right. Maybe it was my teenage guilt, but whatever it was, it gave me a pit in my stomach. We decided to crash around 1 in the morning, and that's when we started to hear the unexplainable noises that came from all corners of the house. We could clearly hear whispers coming from the other side of the window. We all tried to be quiet and listen because some of us still thought it was our imagination playing tricks on us. This was a mistake. Whoever was outside the window started to lightly bang on the other side, and we could hear them clearly saying in a whisper, "Hey, I know you're awake." We had no idea what to do. This is before everybody had a cell phone, so we didn't call the police. And honestly, we thought we would get in trouble. The noises stopped eventually, and just when we thought whatever was happening was over, we noticed a note on the outside of the kitchen window. Taped on the note on the glass was just the word, "Gotcha," with a smiley face next to the word. I remember trying to look outside under the streetlights for any sign of a person, but I didn't see anybody. There was no one lurking in the shadows, no trace of an intruder. The realization that we were being watched terrified us. For some reason, we never told any of our parents. We have no idea who pranked us that night. I suppose it could have somehow been someone from Craigslist that night, or even more terrifying, it could have been a complete stranger. Either way, I learned my lesson after that. I never messed with anyone on Craigslist ever again, and we never made another prank phone call after that either. My advice to anybody reading this: be kind. You never know who you may upset.